Good morning, everybody. Oh, wait, am I getting head patted? Of course I am. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How are y'all doing? Did y'all sleep alright? Did y'all wake up easily? I know I'm late, and I apologize. Unfortunately, I somehow set my alarm clock 10 minutes wrong? So, yeah, I'm still half asleep. Oh, but I was able to make it up this morning. So how's everyone doing? Did I eat? I eat as much as I'm gonna get. You woke up from a weird dream. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for the follow, the coffee god. Good morning, cherry jam. I actually have coffee right now. It's nice and warm. But as you all, I saw y'all were talking about how can somebody not like coffee. Did you know that everybody's taste buds are slightly different? And in coffee, there's something called tannins. Tannins are what make coffee better. And some people are more sensitive to tannins, while others are less. Meaning the people who hate coffee completely most likely have a sensitivity to tannins. Oftentimes they won't like red wine either. Yeah, I love coffee though. Something incredible to tell you. Turns out I live 5 minutes from Tiny Pot Pie Store. No. Really? Kira, I need you to go to this place. And I need you to tell me how it is, okay? I need to know so badly. So badly. Hopefully it's delicious and as amazing as I think it is. Okay. So let me take a look here real quick. We're gonna do our whole good mornings and all that. Let's see. Thank you, Solian, for getting second. Thank you, Wolfos Untamed, for getting third. Thank you, Star Wolf, for getting first. Congratulations, all three of you. Though I see we've learned how not to count again. Yes. And now, good morning, Brookie. Good morning, Asher. Good morning, Aria. You don't like pot pies at all? Oh, there's a bong. Good morning, Starwolf and Stellar and Wolfhouse. Good morning, Shadowy and Amelia. Good morning, Tasha and Poison and Calypso. Good morning, Spooky. Good morning, Carmia. Good morning, Sakona. Good morning, Necro Ninja. Good morning, Call Me Mutt. And Elaine. Good morning, Lunar and Humania and Dazai. Good morning, Bella and Julia and Kiara. Good morning, Silly Goose, Sleepy Sunny Puppy, and Cinder. Can you get an autograph for me from the guy who does the little tiny pot pies? I want an autograph of the guy who does this, the tiny pot pies, and the guy who goes, who does the whole, it's a prank. You idiot. I want their autograph. I want that signed on my wall. I will pay you. I will give you money and find out a way so that you can send it to me. Where were we? Good morning, Kitty Goth. Good morning, Chicken Witch. Good morning, Sunny the Sunshine and Shadow. I don't know. It's just. Anyways, good morning, Lily and Sinful, Microwave, and Void and Ocean. Good morning, Imana and Embry. Good morning, Molly and Goblin King. Good morning, Izio, Misty, and Cade. Good morning. Unlucky. Ooh. Good morning, Dea. Caitlin. Good morning, Ariana. Good morning, Shadowy Destroyer. Good morning, Little Mouse and Sleepy Sunny Puppy. Good morning, Pandragon, Rookie's Rebellion. Good morning, Pinky and Yuki and Shadow. Good morning, Yuri. Good morning, Maddie. Good morning, Izio. CC Bear. I like your name, CC Bear. It's cute. Good morning, Amelie. And Shadow. I think that is everyone. If I missed you, I am sorry. I'm just so very, very, very eepy. Yes, one sec. I'm also eating mangoes. We're gonna play the trash game today. Wow. I think it should be fun. And we might also end up playing Elden Ring at some time. And I purr. Not intentionally. But I might. We'll see. Oh, Outward 2 is coming out soon. I might pull in a friend to play Outward 2. I really enjoyed Outward. You woke up, I'm about to sleep. Perfect. Go get your sleep. Close your eyes. Okay. We're gonna play the absolutely lovely. Oh, you're right. I forgot to yeah. I was running late, so I didn't change the date. Thank you. I gotta redeem. Oh. I'm such a good doggy. There you go. Now where were we? Wife. There it is. My wife threw out my card collection. But yes. We're going to play. My wife threw out my card collection, so I bought a dump to find them. But I need to remind you all. Today, we're going to be going and hanging out with a bunch of cool streamers in this evening. Goblin Fia, Tippy Hendrix, Magical John, and the lovely Moo Moo. It's going to be a lovely, lovely, lovely little stream. So you all come by. I hope you enjoy it, okay? Ooh, thank you so much for the redeem. Good morning, Spell and Neffy. Alright, it's time. Oh, somebody broke my stream again. Which one of you left the square up last night? Why does no one remember to put the square away? You'll need to put away that square. Every time you yawn, don't yawn. Oh, why would you yawn? I mean, dorks. I'm just. Where's the square? The square doesn't want to go away today. There it is. Are you calling me contagious? Well, like I have a disease? It's so mean to me. So mean. One second. I'm muted, sorry. Oh, that's right. I am so tired. My body wants to move as little as possible right now. No, if you don't drink water, I might have to kick you out. You need to start drinking water. Unless you have a reason you cannot drink water, you need to drink water. It's good for you. Make you big and strong. Or at least alive. And it keeps your skin looking nice and pretty. It's true, it's true. Monster does not have enough water in it to work. You need to have plain water, or water with lemon, or water with some simple flavor. G-Subs even does decaffeinated, so if you need something that's going to allow you to drink water, but it's decaffeinated, you can even do some little bit of G-Subs in it. Coffee, no. I feel you, Sakona. Wait, not Sakona. Who said? I couldn't read the name fast enough. But I also have that issue because of Thanksgiving. And because of Black Friday, I had to take 2 days off work, which means my paycheck is going to be 2 days less. Welcome to the loveliness of being a contractor in the United States. I couldn't choose not to take the holidays off, but that means I still don't get to choose. I still lose the money. Cleaning while you drink, nice. Try getting yourself a really big jug for your water. It makes it a lot easier to drink. Yeah. I mean, Molly, if they told you you had to not work, I feel like a lot of countries would still, make it so that they have to pay you because it's not my choice. It is what it is, though. Yeah. I like special drinks, but that's because I'm ADD. I normally have one cup of water, 1 cup of some sort of go juice, and then 1 of a special tasty thingy. That makes sense. I think it's just quicker to drink with a straw. Maybe that's what we need to do. What if we make LuckyJene water bottles that have a little encouragement on it to make you drink your water? Would you drink your water more then? Hey, water bottles with little voidlings all over them. Can we have silly straws? Of course you can have silly straws. Can I drink cran juice? That's my G-Subs flavor, is crayon. Can we have tumblers too? I will have to see. With the fish inside? There's a water bottle with fish inside? The Voilings are not released yet. They are. The base versions are made. I just need to pick a nice little release date for them. You'll do great, Mutt. I believe in you. Yes. Yes, cara mia. Although I think I might add a little, like, scale thing to it. What's your favorite color of gummy bear, y'all? Red. Ooh, see, Carmia. You and me both. Well, I like the white ones the best. We do. I did ask all the mods what their favorite gummy bears are. Maybe we'll find out that they all have in common the favorite gummy bear. That's been the secret to being my mod. I remember in like first grade we did this thing on how to like learn averages, and everybody got gummy bears, and you had to we had to put down what your favorite gummy bear was, and it was always red. Red was always people's favorite by the most, and white was like the least favorite, but white was my favorite. Do I play Roblox? I do not. I have in the past, but I currently don't. Red 40's yummy. Does Red 40 have a taste? According to science. Well, according to science, a bee shouldn't be able to fly. But it does. But bees don't care what science thinks. Bees are cool. I mean, they ignore aerodynamics. Let's be honest. They're not efficient in their flight. But I mean, it makes sense. If you take wings and you make them go really quickly, it's not like they're breaking any laws of science. But we like to say they are. You should watch the Bee movie. Do you actually want to watch the Bee movie? Which the movie be this weekend? I don't know. You know what? If we ever hit like an insane goal, I will read the script of the Bee movie. I would probably have that vocal stem with that little fish, but I don't know the song. It's not distinct enough in my brain. Oh yeah, that happens. Cinder, you need to eat lunch. Lunch is very important. If you have food, you should eat it. Get some lunch. I'm a little hungry, actually. I had my waffles, but I'm still hungry. I might make myself a little pizza after this. Oh my god, the pan. Too lazy to make food. That's valid. Did you know, for a man my height, I can eat an entire frozen pizza and be within my calorie limit to ensure that I stay in good shape? Which is funny, because then I can just make a pizza and be all like, this is my calories for today, and I don't have to do anything else. It's nice to be lazy. No, I mean, it's pizza. It has carbs, it has cheese, it has protein. The one I has lots of veggies on it. There's no reason I shouldn't. Yeah, pizza's not the best food. Sandwiches are the best. Though the pizza hasn't been made yet, so technically it's frozen right now. Have a good one, meow kitty. Go get that money. No, sandwiches are better than pizza. You can only have pizza sometimes. Pavi, you know what I suggest? Rice porridge. Rice porridge. 1 part rice, 8 parts water. You put it in like an Instapot, or you cook it for a long period of time. And you just, it makes so much food, but it's not high calorie and it's very cheap. So you physically feel full because it fills up your stomach, but it's not, too overly heavy. No, that's a calzone, that's not a sandwich. If you would have to cut the pizza in half and then layer it, but because there's no fillings between it, you just have 2 pieces of bread, and 2 pieces of bread a sandwich does not make. We're not gonna argue on what makes a sandwich, are we? Oh yeah, Sleepy, definitely try it. Delicious. My favorite kind of sandwich, though, is... I don't have one. I just like sandwiches. I could tell you what my favorite sandwich at Panera's is, though. My favorite sandwich at Panera's is the bacon turkey bravo because it has it's called a remoulade on it. And it's turkey, bacon, some sort of cheese, a remoulade, other stuff. Good morning, good morning. Ooh, that sounds delicious. You said carbohydrate and I read carbonation. I was trying to figure out why your hot dogs were bubbly. I still have a good one. Oh, we had snow. It was awful. Nobody knew how to drive, and so everybody was so slow, and it's annoyingly frustrating. On the subject of arguing about what makes sense, do you think a bowl of ranch with one piece of lettuce is a soup or a salad? I think it's a sin. Excuse me, are we trying to drink the ranch? What? Don't. Ooh. No. Calypsy, why have you put that in your body? How have you put that in your body? Wait. How is it possible? Oh, ranch is a dill and cream based salad dressing. It's heavy on dill. I think it's like cream dill vinegar. So yeah, it's just salad sauce. And that's very tasty. Ranch is mayonnaise based? Oh, there you go. Mayo based. Oh, yeah, to be fair, mayo is creme. Mayo with herbs. Yeah. Have y'all ever made mayo? Yeah, I've made ranch before. Oh no, don't drink it. That nobody actually drinks ranch. So, I mean, nobody who's sane drinks ranch. Most people don't drink ranch. Yeah. Oh, welcome, Luna. Welcome. Welcome to the menagerie. That's not a chat. Why? Okay. Don't drink ranch. Calypsy drank ranch flavored soda. It doesn't actually have ranch in it. No, nice. Well, I hope you enjoy your time here. People drink cane sauce. Okay, people drink, yeah, fine. People do a lot of dumb things. But just because they do it doesn't mean you should. Cane sauce is a sauce from the restaurant Cane's. It's a chicken place. Don't know exactly what's in it. But it's known as like one of the few good things on the menu. Not saying like that there's only a few good things on the menu, but more of the stuff is made as it's like the chicken is there just to deliver sauce to your mouth. Yeah, Cane's is only in certain places. We have one nearby here. Enjoy your class. Good luck on your test. No, it's Steve again. Why does the fish have legs? That's what my question is. Why does the fish need to walk? Why does he walk? Ketchup, mayo, pepper? That makes sense. Well, because Darwin's a cartoon character. To get to the idiot's house? Yeah, Cinder, knock knock. There's someone at your door. It's the fish. But does the fish? He does have... Yeah, he does actually. It's the tax man. I don't care if the IRS is sending, I'm not going to pay my taxes. I know, I appreciate you, Cinder. Oh, don't do your taxes. Don't do taxes. No taxes. Oh, this little fish's name is, the fish named Steve, I think. More like Steve the fish. Mungo. How many shrimp do they have to eat before you eat too much and you'll get sick? Shrimp are really great. Oh, yes, this childish Gambino. The reason why we need to do our taxes in the US is due to lobbying by companies that make it so that you have to do your taxes. Yay, lobbyists. They're so great, aren't they? I Hush and Malteser. Can I buy the last pile of trash yet? Let's see how much one this one costs. I want to see it. 20,000, we're almost there. Yes, but the rich people have to pay somebody to tell them they don't pay taxes. I can't, unfortunately, use any of the free filing apps. As a streamer, I have multiple tax forms that I have to do. Instead of having to pay the most to actually do my taxes, I have to use unique tax forms. That's no fun. But at least being a streamer saves me money on my taxes, because I can write off things like buying games and products and models. They're all tax write-offs. Mm-hmm. They teach you how to do taxes? No, you mostly have to rely on websites that walk you through it. I know, right? Oh, 100%. They want you to do it poorly so you pay more. No way you get less money. Or they want you to have to hire somebody to do it. Do we have taxes in the basement? No taxes in the basement, no. I have taxes, you don't, and I'm still not paying them. This game is my wife threw out all of my cards, so I bought the dump to find them and get them back, or something like that. It's a long name. Oh, we have raiders. Hello, raiders. How are you doing today? Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you did well. I hope you enjoyed your whatever you were doing. Could we get a shout out for them? Yeah, let me make sure we can go to the jail real quick. 1 second. Don't worry, don't worry. You actually came with a raid this time. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Hello, lovely raiders. This here is the basement that I built just for you. Isn't it lovely? I mean, I know it's a little cold, but, you see, I've been trying to get closer and closer to those partnership numbers, and I'm tired of people leaving, so you're stuck here now. Don't worry, there's a lot of people here now. Way too many. So enjoy your cage. But how was your stream? How was the stream? Did you have fun? Don't lick the raiders. It's great. What were you doing? I'm assuming ASMR. Though I do occasionally get raids from people who aren't doing ASMR, and that always yapped about Christmas movies. Oh, we were doing that the other day. Right now we're talking about taxes. Not the best thing to talk about. Let's talk about Christmas movies instead. Chat. Favorite Christmas movie? Go. You can't say Die Hard. I refuse to acknowledge Die Hard as a Christmas movie. No, I refuse to acknowledge Die Hard as a Christmas movie. Oh, A Muppet's Christmas Carol is good. I actually like that one. What about Love Hard? No, it's Love Soft. Die Hard. Wait. Grinch. The OG, like the cartoon? Wait, so not the Jim Carrey version, but the Jim Carrey one is so nice. Can we watch Muppets for movie night? Maybe. You want to watch Muppets for movie night? I suppose. I guess we can watch the Muppets for movie night. It's either going to be Saturday, Sunday. I'm not sure which one though yet. Wait, Love Hard is really a movie? Love Hard is actually a movie. Okay. I will go watch it. I believe you. I should get more sleep. Voidlings, how much sleep do you get? And lovely Raiders, how much sleep do you get? Oh, this is the worst part of the year, is having to defrost your car. 6 hours? That's not bad. Oh. Have y'all not been sleeping well? Do we need to make, like, a check-in? Oh, by the way, sorry, Raiders, if you need a raid and run, please feel free to do so. I don't want to hold you hostage. Actually, I am holding you hostage. Thank you for the follow, Mystic. Welcome to the menagerie. But yes, if you need to raid and run, totally fine. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. And if you want to hang out, just fine. I appreciate that as well. 1 to 4 hours is my normal. You need to be getting at least 4 hours of sleep. 4 hours is the minimum for body recovery. Yep, definitely go get some sleep. Come on, Abyss, you got this. Get a little sleep. You got 5 because you didn't have to get up for work? Wait, does that mean you get less sleep normally? Carmilla, I am banning you from evening streams. You're not allowed to watch evening streams anymore because you're not getting enough sleep. Yes, the collab stream is an hour later. It's a good thing we're getting new mods soon, so that I can ban Cuddlemia from evening streams. I haven't napped before. Okay, including naps, how many hours of sleep do you get a day, Cuddlemia? Hello, Lucidia. 5 total. You need 1 more hour of sleep. You can only watch half of the evening stream. Sleep is boring? Well, sleep isn't supposed to be entertaining. It's supposed to be restful. See, 8 to 10. There we go. That's a good amount. I am proud of you. I mean, I didn't say you have to do that, but... Fine. Go get your sleep. Oh, then you should be sleeping lower, Bumble. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Don't worry, the VOD will be up for the collab. Oh, remember, if you don't sleep enough, that'll be a lot sooner than you think. The collab will be 1 hour later than normal streams. So 5. I am so nervous, actually. Because all the people are so cool, and what if they don't like me, chat? What if they hate me? What if I'm just not cool enough for them? What if I get overwhelmed? I just go quiet. I can't talk to anybody. You biting them? Well, then. You're not hateable. Oh, I very much doubt that. People can hate anybody. Trust me. Alright, fair enough, fair enough. Y'all are very cute. I'm less hateable, valid. Stop putting Raiders in your mouth. I just hope they all also have fun. I haven't actually played the game at all that we're gonna play. I have looked into it a little bit. And I may try how to run it, but that's about it. I hope it's not boring. You are adorable. Make us Raider snacks? I'll make the Raider snacks. You do not know how long it took Ramia to admit that they were cute. Waffles. I'm gonna make waffles for everybody. So Karamia will stop bad-mouthing my choice in buying a waffle maker. No, not snacks made from Raiders, snacks for the Raiders. Stop trying to eat the Raiders. He says tango waffles. Norwegian waffles? What are Norwegian waffles? Well, make some crepes. We cannot eat the Raiders. What are Norwegian waffles? Chat, we're not going to have any new people coming over wanting to hang out if you keep trying to eat them. How are we going to make friends if y'all keep trying to eat them, huh? You warned them that they taste good. More buttery. I do like butter. Raiders are friends, not food. There you go. I have to make y'all start repeating that. Every morning I'm gonna wake up and make sure everybody says it. But that boy didn't want to be able to walk anymore. Anyone who doesn't say it will get a little timeout. I'll put them in jail. I'll give you the anti-stimulus cage. It's an empty cage, and you can see blankets, and you can see all the stuff that you want, but you can't reach it. Put you in the bad jail. Yeah, we'll just put you in even smaller jail if you're short. No blankets. Blankets that are just outside of the cage that you can see. Good morning, Lunally. How you doing? We're almost done with the first part of this. So mean. Never. Oh, nice. Slurp. No. Each bad voidling gets their own little cage. And the worse the voidling is, the deeper it is in the cage. So they're more likely to run into the cage man. Mom. You do? Oh, no. He's not a warden. He just makes voidlings disappear every once in a while. That's why every once in a while we don't see a voidling anymore. The cage man took him. Can the cage man swim? And the mods can always call the cage man too. If they can take care of a bad voidling, they can call the cage man. It's a special power you get as a mod. Good question. No one knows what the cage man looks like because anyone who sees him doesn't come back. Gotta hide Pocky in the Pocky Pond. Valid. Welcome to the menagerie. Oh, the cage man is very lonely and very cold and always hungry. So every once in a while he grabs a voidling. You see though, it's been so long since he's actually interacted with people, he doesn't do things right anymore. And he might just, think the right way to greet somebody is by eating them. Do any of us do anything right? Valid. Oh, it's Pokemon. Hello, Pokemon. Logna. Thornip. Thingle. Oh, well, I can't control the cage man. It's not that I allow him to, he just does. And it's not like I can punish the cage man by sending him to the cage man. You know what? I think I'm gonna make y'all start greeting the raiders nicely. We need to make sure that they feel comfy so they want to stay. So next raiders that come in, I want you not to lick them, but I want you to offer them blankets and stuff instead. Do you think you can do that? Once they get comfy, then you can try to lick them. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't call it hell. Oh yeah, look at you, Necro. Look at you keeping up on it. Necro, do you like lore? You definitely seem like the kind to like lore. So, I know a lot of you are neurodivergent. Do y'all ever have a situation where you want to explain something to somebody, but somebody picks it up too quickly so you can't explain it enough, and then it's not as satisfying? I know it's like a very specific situation, but okay, cool. I'm glad I'm not the only person. I had that happen the other day because I'm doing like coaching for people. And I wanted to like talk about some of my coaching concepts, and they're like instantly picked it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, dang, I was gonna talk about that for like 30 minutes, and you just got it. Okay. And that was so frustrating. Well, and the problem was like the person already had like some idea about what I was talking about. And I think a lot of like what I talk about is things that make sense to a lot of people. It's just we've always been told different things about streaming. Carmeo, you need to show me how to do that. Coach me on coaching people. Well, I know you do it, but it doesn't mean that I know how you do it. The chat is definitely entertaining, that's right. Carmi is definitely teaching me, is training me. Oogie boogie. Oogie boogie. Hey, don't you be squeezing out the cage. Cage man. It's me, I'm the puppy. Give me attention. Not a dog, but you know, if I was a dog. Oops. You know, I can tell this game is good because I grumble a lot less when playing it. So it's a good game. I mean, y'all are made of the void, so you're gonna come back. And the basement's made of brick, so it's not gonna burn down. So there's no reason for me to really stop the fire, is there? Why would I need to stop the fire? You'll be fine. You most definitely cannot eat the cage man. You can try, but you will not succeed. I'm the fire starter. Can voidlings absorb light? No, because the voidlings have two different versions. The dark ones and the light ones. They are just the absence of things, though. Oh, I mean, yeah, and you see the problem is, if I have to put you back together, it might be a long time before I can put you back together. And that means no streams, no snacks, no nothing until I can get enough stuff to get together. Yes, it is Beamy. Hi, Beamy, how you doing? So who knows how long I'll have to leave you in that void. More of a counter. When I have the supplies. But it's difficult to have the supplies to make voidlings. Oh yeah, no, I know cars are gonna suck today. Welcome in, little Mooney. Alright, we're just gonna turn on the sprinkler system. Yeah, I'm just gonna turn on the sprinkler system, it's fine, y'all. Now y'all just get wet instead. I know, right? Yep, no fires. No thoughts, just pshh. Exactly, y'all are stinky. This will clean you up, you'll be fine. It's time, you ready? Here's the final trash power. Oh, it's like a wall. Oh, it's just a big square. I wanted it to be taller. I'm only a little disappointed. Could you become the Cage Man's friends? No, you'll see. You can try. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. Cara mia. Does this feel unsatisfying to you? I might be done. I might not play anymore. I don't like it. Me too. I don't like its shape. And at least be the same size as these, but wider. That would have been something. This may have just killed my enjoyment of this game. Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one who's just like... It's just too square. Because, like, it would have been... I mean, I think it's also the fact that, like, the image of it was a hidden giant pile. And then they're just like, no. If this had been like the outline and I'd seen it from the very beginning, it would have been different. But the fact that they're showing off a giant pile of trash and now it's not even... It feels worse than the piles in front of it. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. No. No. I'm finding something else. I'm upsetting spaghetti. I'll go back to it later. No. No, we're in the car now. The game is no longer gaming. The dopamine is gone. I felt the dopamine stop, and that was the worst. Don't bug me. How dare you? Oh, you'll have to wait on the Voidling lore. I wonder if the first Voidling is going to be in the story. I need to think about that. I wonder if they ever fixed the audio in Trash Goblin. Because the audio was too unbalanced, so I couldn't enjoy it. This might work. I use YouTube Music mostly because I like YouTube Music has slightly better bass and is a little bit louder in my car. I should do Spotify. I just want a Spotify Wrapped, but honestly, like, it's just the sound quality. Well, hi, Vanya. I'll need to check on my YouTube Wrapped. Are voidlings microwave safe? No. They will pop in the microwave. They'll technically survive, but they will pop. Like an egg. Like an egg. Have a good one, Malteser. Lovely to see you. I wouldn't suggest putting them in the microwave, but I guess you can. Chip bags shrink in the microwave? Really? Yes, voidlings become plasma. Yes, that's something that I think a lot of people learn early on, is not to schedule classes like you used to have in other fields. What are you sharing? Bear with me. What a voidling costume be? I guess that's up to you. But voidlings do like to make their own clothes, to make themselves more distinct. They collect things that they find, stitch them together as best they can. You want to make a voidling hat? And voidlings do have two kinds of hats. I don't know how the voidlings do it. I think they keep taking my sewing supplies. That's just a tall voidling. He can put together the monster eyes. Alright, I guess it's... good morning, kitty. How you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you enjoy your time here. You'll be good, Sarah. I keep doing that. I keep throwing away my plots. How tall are humans in voidling form? Oh, like humans, it depends. Some of them are exactly a specific size, some of them get taller. And some can look incredibly interesting. I'll give you all one little thing. You ready for it? Here's your little fact. Your one little fact. In my world, powers are part of the body and the way that they change. So, if you happen to, one sec, Hoppy, yeah. Anyways, so, if for instance, you become very, very powerful with a specific kind of, ability, it will start changing your body. To the point that people who are really, really high up in certain abilities can almost look demonic or angelic. Some of them look almost monstrous. Someone at the height of their power might not even look human anymore. Oh, Stella, that is the $15 million question, isn't it? How do Voidlands get their abilities? Especially when it makes sense for the humans. I mean, humans can kind of just pick them up. They either get them through birth or sometimes due to how they're perceived by others. But how do Voidlands get these same abilities? Especially when these abilities look like they only ever hit humans and they don't hit animals. And you know how they do it? You'll have to find out by reading or listening to the story. But I will tell you this. There are two ways the Voidlands get abilities before they can make it to their final stage. Two ways. And they're things so distinct with only Voidlands. No human can do the same. I guess technically 3 ways. Technically 3. There's gonna be a quiz. I'm gonna be making a quiz to see what house you belong to. But remember, just like in anything, just because you belong to a certain house does not mean that's the say-all, end-all, be-all. Whatever suit you belong to. Star Wolf, you dog. Putting forks in a toaster is not an ability. There are 4 houses, 4 suites. Hearts, diamonds, spades, and clubs. They're personality based. I wouldn't really say there's a Hufflepuff of the houses, but there's something similar. Oh, if you're gonna be part of the shadows, you might be a spade. Oh, but hearts are pretty. Hearts are courageous. But they're also people who can connect with others. I can't tell you all too much. I don't want to spoil anything. Hmm. Where will they be posted? You'll find out. A lot of this is going to have to wait, though, until we do the fundraiser. February 13th. Voidlands will be teased before we do the fundraiser, because I want to show off the Voidlands to other people and get people excited about them. Yeah. What's my puddle? These guys, these are my favorite. They're so cute. Shadow, why'd you sneak in 1,000 cats? How'd you get 1,000 cats in here? Guess who gets to go to the void? It's you. That's fair. I can't really stop Voidlands from eating them. Sorry. Where do I find you? They're so silly. You can also cuddle the kitties. Try not to eat them, if you can help it. We might have to put you in the void. We'll see how it goes. I mean, cats will also chase around the small voidlings. Cats might try to eat the smaller voidlings. I'm thinking you're just like a large rat. I am this. That's valid. Hamsters. They're like knee height, yes. I would say the biggest a voidling can start at is around knee height. At least for me, knee height. And the smallest would be like calf. How small is small? Good question. The world may never know. I do work today. How to lower my knees? Good question. You can't be saved from the void, unfortunately. The void? Ooh, odd onion. We're gonna grow odd onions, y'all. Yep, stream did start late. But we're still fine. I have 15 minutes. We have axolotls. We do have an axolotl. Some of you are bunnies, and some of you are kitties. What's your question? You want a capybara? Capybara. What are you? Where do you go? Oh, interesting. What animal you are? Oh, the animal's really your choice. The house is the only thing that gets decided before then. You can have Chuck. Where do you keep getting cats from? There's an axolotl on the back stairs. This voidling's going into the void. This not voidling slime. Is an axolotl supposed to be there? If you ask an axolotl, they'll be there tomorrow. Oh, I can actually get these. Yeah, give me a second, go. She wants crystal or rock? Oh, gross, she wants a rock. Fine, I'll get rock. $3,000. 3,000. Why do you have? Okay. I'm not gonna question it. You know, I don't need to question it. Oh, what'd you ask me? I zoned out. Oh, void. The axolotl, the voidling will explode, and then it will return to the void. It'll slime away into the nothing, the ether. I did it. What gibbets do? Huzzah. Why are we huzzahing gibbets? Attack. Gibbets, I'm proud of you, gibbets. Good job. I'm just sitting in my car and waiting for my... You must wait. Yeah, Carmia. You pinged me at like 9 my time. What was that about? Why are you awake at that time? Alright, lovelies, we'll have to go pretty soon. I might need to leave a little early so I can get things going on my stuff today. Pin me. Work day. Today's a work day, unfortunately. But I do appreciate you all so very, very much. You all have been so amazing today, as you are every day. Now, let's see if we can find somebody to raid into, okay? I wish I could go to sleep, but I have to work. Oh, Hoshi's doing ASMR today. We can raid Hoshi. Yay. Y'all say hi to Hoshi, okay? Alright. Oh, I need to get an emote that's just the Yoshi marks. I think that'd be cool if we had an emote that's just the 2 hearts so people can spam it real quick. What do you think? There we go. Oh, she's amazing. Y'all will be so good. Have such a lovely time, okay? Give him a little, Maybe don't give him a kiss. He might not want a kiss. But you can give him attention, okay? Alright. Bye, lovelies. Bye.